he has brought up that he needs to know about.
1981.
Robert is at a point of hysteria because he doesn't know about direction, goals, etc. Now, normally, the people that I take into the studio are all people who know what their goals are and how to get there generally, but need help vocally to achieve that goal. They have a mental picture of where they're going. They have a mental picture of themselves. And we're going to discuss that, and that may feel a little bit like psychotherapy by the time we get through today, because I think one of the most difficult things to do is to discuss what we feel and what we want personally, to lay it out on the table. I think it's very hard to say, I want to be this, or I want to be that, because we feel, at this point particularly, everyone feels a sense of, boy, that's pretty ego, like an ego trip, or I'm, like you're exposing yourself and maybe you're not good enough. Like you think you're better than you are and you shouldn't even talk about it because people will think you're conceited or, do you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? We all feel that way. And I think this next question, it will probably make all of you feel a little bit that way. And we've got to be honest and lay things out because we're all friends here and we're all working together to help each other. That's one of the things. Do you know Patty? No. You don't know Patty?
No.
This is Patty Ford.
Thanks a lot. Bring me in there.
Hey, I'm sorry.
Bring you in here, make you
Hi,
feel real
Patty
You
Ford.
comfortable.
come on
Hello,
over and
Patty
sit
Ford.
between these two guys. Come on, Michael.
Come
Move
on,
over
come
here.
on, come on, right.
Space. Pretty girl, talented girl.
there.
They won't mind at all. I'm not putting
We'll
you
show
in
you what a
joke, 'cause
sandwich is
Joe
really like.
is married, and we don't dare expose him to.
What?
We don't dare expose you to Joseph because he's married, and we have to keep that marriage solvent.
Which one's Joseph?
That's Joe.
Joseph is over there.
And that's David, who usually sits in the back of the bus, but we broke him of that. He's right up front now, you know.
But he's always got to have the corner.
But he's still in the corner. That's so he can be
Michael.
first. Okay,
I got my name for a birthday present,
Hey, that was pretty nice. Who
Yeah.
did that?
among other things.
okay, now, when you daydream, and if you don't daydream, you're in the wrong business, because that's the one thing that we survive on during the time that we're going from point A to point Z. When you daydream, how do you see yourselves? Now you must have some mental picture of where you perform. If you didn't, you shouldn't be in here. If you don't have a daydream about where you're going, how you see yourself ultimately, you're in the wrong pew. Because you have to have some concept within yourself of what it is you're going to be, where you're going, and how you look when you get there. Now, because you're probably further along the line with that, Joe, than anyone else in here, tell us about you. Who are you?
Somebody brought you there.
Oh! Oh!
Pizza.
No! No!
Lunch.
Oh! Let's see. And nobody can have any but me. I'm going to spit all over it. Anybody want a bagel? Isn't that nice? Cheddar and eggs. I'll bet you money on it. Have you ever been to Aladdin's?
Where?
Aladdin's? Well, it's a fun place. It's run by Moonies. Now, wait a minute. I want to tell you something. They are the nicest kids you'll ever come in contact with. They are...
Not if you meet them in an airport, they're not.
No,
Like that.
no.
Are they pushy in airports?
Originally,
Who isn't? I haven't met anybody who wasn't.
there's, who was it
They're pushy in
recently?
parking lots,
Eldridge
too.
Cleaver was once thinking of being a Mooney, and he liked them very much because they set out to do something and they do it.
Yes,
That's what he liked
they're
about
very
him.
dedicated, and the thing that you have to take into consideration, too, is that all of these kids that are in that organization are kids who have very deeply rooted problems. And they're meeting them. They're meeting them in a constructive way. Some of them were drug-oriented. They had problems. They're kids who you feel very comfortable with. There isn't enough they can do for you. They'll do anything for you. As far as airports, I hate airports, and I'm probably just as aggressive as anybody else in an airport. At any rate, they're kids who have had deeply rooted problems before, and they've straightened them out through the organization. And I don't see any difference between their commitment to their religion and the Catholic commitment with their priests and nuns and all the rest of it. I really see no difference there at all. I think they're just equally brainwashed. Do you see? I can't see that difference. And I do see when you go in there, they make you feel welcome. They'll do anything to make you comfortable or give you what you want and to please you. And it's a nice place. When you leave, they say, goodbye, hope you enjoyed your lunch, come back again soon. There's never a turned-down grill like you find in many restaurants with waitresses or waiters who think that they're doing you a huge favor by serving you. These people aren't, you're doing them a favor by coming there. And that's a nice feeling to have. As a consequence, the place is patronized. They never talk about their religion. They never try to promote it. It's never discussed.
Yeah. Originally, I was approached a long time ago when I was at Ghirardelli Square by two people, and they were really pleasant, and they talked about this house. They'd like me to come over, and they never really got into saying who they were or what they were.
Mm-hmm.
And I resented it because they
Good thing you didn't go. I'm not talking about what they do as far as promoting their religion externally. I'm only talking about in their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
They catered a party for some people on our street, and it could not have been more meticulously catered. The things were elegantly put together. The service was just absolutely wonderful. They were just great. Now, back to the drawing board. Joe, you're probably further along in this business of identity and direction than anyone else in the class. I don't know about you, David. We've never really discussed your goals and what you're doing in that direction.
In transition right now.
In transition. Now, Joe, where are you going? What's the ultimate?
Well, ultimate is to make a hit record. I've got the material, I've got the experience, got the talent, got it covered in about 4 different ways.
What are those 4 different ways?
Play guitar sufficiently well. I sing sufficiently well after having come here sufficiently well.
You don't have to be self-conscious.
Well, no, the reason I came here was not because I didn't have confidence in myself as a singer, but because when I went into the recording studio, my voice didn't come across the way I wanted it to.
Is it doing better?
I mean, the way I've sung on gigs, I would have never even considered ever having a singing voice, period. Because I've always had plenty of confidence and always had plenty of audience response, never had any problems at all.
Well, that's because on a gig, you are, as we've talked before, you're only 20% audio, and you're 80% visual.
That's right.
So if they adore you, they're going to accept anything that you do. Now, how are you going to get to this ultimate recording thing?
Well, there's several different ways to do it. One is to be with somebody that makes it. One is to have a group itself that makes it as a group. One is the other.
Makes it how?
Well, either gets discovered or has a good manager that pushes the
Do anything. You didn't get any money until the record made the money. If the record made the money, great. But they didn't give you front money to make a record.
That's the realistic way to do it. It's a business.
It's a business. And now, because they've shot their wad to such a... They're broke. That unless you come in with a master, and you have to give them, if it's an original, you have to give them a percentage of the writing, the whole thing, if they happen to like it. Now, the best way to get your foot in the door is by writing for other people, getting your material to other people. And believe it or not, they are looking. There aren't that many good writers. There aren't that many good tunes. And they're looking for material constantly. There's no problem getting it to them.
How do you find getting it to them? How do you know where to mail it? How do
You
know what
don't
to
mail it, you go where
You ever
they
been to the
are.
Circle Store? Catch them right in the performance.
No. You
You know
go
where
where
they eat
they
dinner at,
are.
breakfast at?
They all have management companies, they all have
They all have
offices.
addresses.
That's right.
Yeah, but even the
Kidnap
management
'em.
companies, they won't even listen.
That's right.
You've got to get to them individually or their musical director.
How do you do that? How do you reach them? It's what
You find out where they're performing and you go there.
Yeah, but the thing, it's just as hard to get to them.
You can't be shy, Joe.
But they're the only ones that can do you any good.
It's just as hard to get to them and get them to record the material. as
Hey,
it is
Joe,
to
I'll
get
tell
them
you
yourself.
what. I've got
No.
these blank press passes, and what
No.
we can do is we'll put our pictures on them, okay, and sign them, and then
No,
we'll
it
go
isn't,
into the
Joe.
backstage, okay?
Yeah.
It isn't good. You have no
Yeah,
purchasing
I've done
power.
that I've done that before with Gary Puckett and two people like that, you know, but even there, it's very iffy.
Nothing's iffy.
Yeah, no, met
You
with them
it's,
and jammed
it's
with
a
them.
selling job, Joe, and you gotta be,
You see,
you gotta be pissant tough.
Your argument is invalid because, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Your argument is invalid because you are not a name. And until you are a name and have built some kind of reputation, some kind of playing record, I'm not talking about a record, I'm talking about where you played, where you performed, how much of a draw you are. Until you are a draw, you are of no value to them. That means they've got to go out and promote a brand new performer. And they're not going to do that unless you have the money to promote it.
But the irony is that they're looking for new performers.
No, they're not.
Oh, they are. They're looking for people that can
They're-
that can have the draw.
They are looking for people that can have the draw, but they're not going to promote that person unless they have the money to promote themselves.
So it's almost a contradiction.
It is. It's like a. But where are they looking? That's the point. Where are they looking? They're looking not in the clubs that are in the area here. We're really jumping ahead here, further ahead than I wanted to jump. If people have original material, your best bet at this point and for the next 2 years is to get your foot in the door by getting someone who already has a record contract, who already is selling records. Selling records. Just a record contract doesn't mean a damn thing. You've got people, right, who have record contracts coming out of their ears and are not making any records because they're not selling any records.
Last year, Fantasy Records, I think, hired 20 new people, gave them all recording contracts, and they released 19 of them.
Yeah, but Fantasy
they didn't
is a
back
company-
it up.
Fantasy is a different company.
Yeah, they're-
Fantasy will never promote.
Right, but
Fantasy
it's
deals
the
on
same idea.
units. On
It's the
units.
same idea. They took in 20 and they released 19. I mean, basically it's the same sort of thing. You know, if you get a recording contract, if you don't leave it up to them, it's still up to you to make yourself.
Well, you can't even talk about Fantasy. Fantasy is a whole different ball game than any of the other companies. Fantasy has never promoted. Fantasy is a cult label. Do you know what a cult label is?
No.
Joe McDonald still cuts at least 6 albums a year because they know that each of those albums will sell about 200,000 units.
Mhm.
Okay? So they've got Joe McDonald selling 200,000 units. All right, 6 albums, that's 1,800,000. That's 1,800,000 units per year. They don't have to promote him. They don't have to do a thing. In the trades, it'll say or in the newspaper, it'll say Joe McDonald. You know, in the little thing about records,
Mhm.
in the newspaper or in the magazines, we've got this new album, and all the Joe McDonald fans go out and buy it. They don't even have to advertise it, right? It's
Right.
reviewed by what's been released.
Yeah, they don't even care what's on the album. They just buy it.
They buy it because they
It's
go
Joe
for
McDonald.
Joe McDonald, and they have about, I'd say 10 to 12 artists that are cult artists that work the same way. Now, Fantasy is solvent. Fantasy will not give you to do a record. They will make the record. But they are solvent because with those 10 or 12 artists that are definitely cult artists, they know that they're going to sell, let's say, 10 million albums a year, every year, on those people alone. They don't have to advertise them, they don't have to promote them, and they don't care that the artist is not making $5 billion because of the taxage. There's a whole bunch of reasons there. They don't promote a thing, and they sign you. So what? Maybe you only draw, if they really believe in you, they might do 3 albums, and if you don't at least draw 50,000, you might only draw 50,000 every time you release an album and build up a cult following over a period of many years. Then they drop you.
Yeah,
Do you
Sylvester, I
there's
think,
no-
has become a sort of a cult following now.
Yeah.
Originally, he was on
Well,
the
you know,
top 40.
Creedence, Clearwater was the one that put Fantasy
That's right.
on the map to begin with.
Yeah.
They didn't promote Creedence. They didn't promote